What is going on, Failroaders? I'm Joshua Thomas, and I'm finally back to talk about more Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth and whatever else Final Fantasy stuff we might cover in this video. Still working on other videos that I want to edit. It is taking a while, a lot longer than I thought it would. Just about time management. Anytime I'm playing a video game, I can't be editing a video, and anytime I'm doing social media stuff, I can't be playing a video game or editing and all that kind of stuff. So it just compounds. But today we are talking about who the final boss, or what the final boss of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth could be. And I had you guys, I posted a video a couple weeks ago asking everyone to take a poll, and I've got the results of this poll right here. So, first off, thank you everyone for the 51 people who voted and for the 15 comments that I got. I really appreciate it. We got Sephiroth with 31%, Cloud with 33%, Diamond Weapon or some other kind of weapon with 24%, Genesis with 12%, and Minerva with 0%. And I really, after thinking about that, I really wish that I had switched out Minerva with Genova, because we did have a few write-ins for Genova. Down here we've got Zio Aquatic, he said Genova. Sunny or Suni, however you pronounce that, also said Genova. So I think we had 3 or 4 total, like Lucretia Crescent, True Genova. She will awaken from her Mako cocoon, Kevin said. So I'm going to kind of count that as a Genova thing. Valerie suggested Genesis, which I think she also voted for that one. And then Digital Decade said some form of Genova as well. Thanks everyone once again for your votes. So if we added up all the write-ins for Genova, that adds up to about 8% of the total voting. So even with the write-ins, Genova actually does come in 5th place out of the 4 that people voted for, and I was really surprised. Even though no one got the majority of the vote, like over 50%, Cloud still beat everyone else out, and I'll definitely talk a little bit about that when we get to him. I'll go over Sephiroth first and foremost. I think that'll be the easiest one. We'll go back to Fun Reel. This is a new reel I've got just for you guys, so that you can just see some different footage from most of the other videos that I do with the online streams. So yeah, let's start with Sephiroth. I hope it's not him. And I think just about every content creator on YouTube has echoed the same thing. Not Sephiroth again, because we fought Sephiroth in Remake. We expect to fight Sephiroth in Part 3. So in Part 2, in Rebirth, give us something different. Now, why do people think that we could be fighting Sephiroth? Well, a lot of people speculate, and I agree with this speculation, that Rebirth is going to end at the Northern Crater, at the end of the Northern Crater, with the events that happen there. We are going to go into some heavy spoiler territory just in talking about final bosses in general, so just be warned there. So with the events that happen at the Northern Crater are, we have an encounter with Genova towards the very beginning, when Sephiroth gives us his recollection of the past, or the past that he wants Cloud to see, the incident at Nibelheim. So this is a retelling from the very first flashback that we get at Calm, and key things are changed, which really makes Cloud question himself. And I believe it's directly after that we fight Genova in one of her forms. It may be Genova Life at this point. So we do have this boss fight, then we continue further into the Northern Crater, and we have another encounter. I think Genova is actually the last boss fight that we have before we actually get to Sephiroth's body, which is encased in the northern crater. So Rufus is also there. He's got some of his Shinra lackeys, including Professor Hojo and Scarlet. And so one thing that Cloud does is he gives the black materia to Red 13. But Genova or Sephiroth or Genovaroth tricks Red 13 into bringing the black materia back to Cloud, who then loses control of himself. I've had a video talking about this. He loses control of himself and he gives the black materia to Sephiroth, which awakens him and allows him to exist in his own body, not as some kind of illusion or some kind of manifestation from Genova, whether it's Genova controlling him or him controlling Genova, no matter what. It's Sephiroth in his own body, his own flesh and blood. So that's why a lot of people speculate that we will be fighting Sephiroth at the end, and because of those events, yeah, it's plausible. Nobody wants it to happen, but it's plausible. So yeah, I think that's the sentiment amongst everyone, and I hope that Square Enix knew this. Like, they knew that this would be an important thing to not have a Sephiroth battle in every single one of the trilogy of the remake series. Yeah, please don't let it be Sephiroth, or if it is, please don't let him be like the final battle. And that is another thing too. We are specifically talking about the final boss, so not say, like Motorball was a part of like the series of final bosses in remake, but I don't think Sephiroth is going to be anything like that at the end of Rebirth. So the other one, and a big vote, was Cloud Strife himself. And this is a very popular fan theory. And once again, I've already discussed this. Cloud loses control of himself. The other times that he loses control of himself, he does beat Aerith. He hits her repeatedly. He almost kills her. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could lose control of himself to a greater extent in Rebirth. And I get that it's an extremely popular theory because there's the potential for there being two different Clouds. So clearly one of them needs to die. And so a lot of people are thinking, well, we're going to have, one of them's going to go evil, or one of them's going to lose total control of himself and not be able to regain that control. One important thing is that when Cloud loses control of himself, he's generally easy to get him to regain control. Like, he blacks out the first time. The party literally just yells at him the second time. They're like, Cloud, snap out of it, and he snaps out of it, and he realizes what's going on. The third time definitely is more difficult. The control over him is greater, but at no point in the OG does he ever become violent towards his own allies at that point. So a lot of people are speculating that it's simply, we can already sense that there is a greater hold over Cloud in Remake, or a greater control over him that Genova and Sephiroth have. And that's the speculation of why it's going to escalate and escalate and escalate until Cloud not only loses control of himself and hands over the black materia, but also attacks his own party. I personally don't like that theory. I think I've made a video, it's the, how crazy will Cloud go talk, where I talked about, my reasons for believing that he won't do that, or that he won't at least be a final boss. A lot of people talk about, how strong he is, and yeah, he is strong in the storyline, but in gameplay, he's, all the other characters are the same strength as him or similar to him. Playing as him in OG, you simply play as him more often, and so generally he's going to be a few levels higher than everyone else, but he's not that OP. So a lot of people are saying, oh, well, when Genova takes control of him, that's how he gets more powerful. And I still don't buy it, I don't buy he's going to go from 8,000 HP to 800,000 HP or something like that just because Genova takes control of him. It's just, it's just one of those jokes where it's like, oh, he was our villain, but now he's our ally, so he has to lose all the HP, or vice versa. Oh, he was in our party, but now that we're fighting him, all of a sudden his HP has quadrupled. What seems more realistic to me is if we do end up having to fight him, it's going to be more like a Rufus boss fight that we had in Remake. The Rufus boss fight I really enjoyed. It was challenging. Some people just got lucky and figured it out right away. Some people were able to deduce it after fighting him for a little bit. A lot of people got really frustrated with it from the playthroughs that I've seen. But, we're going to know Cloud. We're going to know him. So, will his moveset change up at all? I don't know. And I've also theorized that if we do have this battle, it's not going to be like the whole party versus Cloud. It's going to be like a one-on-one. And I imagine Tifa would be the best person to have to one-on-one him, because that would be the most emotional the fight could get. But I just simply don't see him becoming that powerful just in an instance just because Genova takes over him. And I want to pass on a different theory as well. What if he doesn't turn evil at all? What if he actually becomes the good guy? I mean, not becomes the good guy, but what if he just stays the good guy? Just because there are two Clouds doesn't mean that both or one of them has to go evil. There is the possibility there. But Cloud, I feel like Cloud's still better than that. Like, even though he's going to lose control, yes, and hand over the black materia, yes, he's going to be at a huge breaking point. He could still snap out of it and sacrifice himself to save everyone else. And I'll get into that when I talk about some of these other boss fights. But and one example that I use of this, I don't know that a lot of people have ever seen this, but there was a TV show called Farscape that was on years ago. And in Farscape, the main character, John Crichton, is multiplied. In fact, many of the characters are multiplied. And so a part of the episode in this particular situation in Farscape was them trying to figure out, well, who's the real one and who's the clone. And this alien being that is multiplying them says, neither of you are the clone. You are both authentic copies. Like, you are equally John Crichton and you are equally John Crichton. And the reason this alien does this is because it eats one of the copies, which is pretty insane. But basically they kill this creature and both Johns survive. Both of them being equal up to the point where they split. The point where they split, they were both, still John Crichton, but they started having their own unique experiences. This one went left, this one went right. The characters at the end of this get split up. So one of the Johns is with a few of these characters on a different spaceship, and the other John is with the lead female of the show, and like one or two of the other characters. And one of the Johns, and this is also an important thing to remember, and I don't remember if it's in this season, but John is also implanted with a bug by the evil villain of the show, Scorpius. And so he has hallucinations, and he talks to this Scorpius that is in his head. And so that's why it reminded me a lot of Cloud, because Cloud has the main villain in his head as well, whether it is Sephiroth authentically manipulating him, or whether it is just the part of Sephiroth that exists within him that Cloud can't shake because of the traumatic experience he had. So John talks to this Scorpius in his head, and this Scorpius gives him knowledge that he wouldn't otherwise know. And in some situations, Scorpius takes control of him. So it's very interesting, the similarities you can make here. I sometimes wonder if Farscape took a little bit of influence from Final Fantasy in that particular instance. Not in the splitting, though, because Farscape was on like 10 years ago. Did check the Pecco translation of the novel, of the Tifa Aerith novel. No, I haven't checked it yet. I'm still waiting for my copy of the novel to come in, but thanks for asking, Dante. So, anyway, John, one of the Johns that is with the lead female, sacrifices himself to save her, which completely like scars her. Like, she has seen her love interest die, and then later on reunites with the other John Crichton, and he's like so extremely happy to see her, and she's like, I saw you die, like you're dead to me. So it's really interesting to put, if you haven't gotten a chance to see Farscape, all of its seasons are out, and it ends with a movie that they came out with called The Peacekeeper Wars, I think. And just watch that. It's a very unique and innovative TV show for its time. It came out in like the 2000s. So I think that one of the Clouds is going to, instead of turning evil, make an ultimate sacrifice. So enough about the Cloud possibility. And once again, it is still possible. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. Let's talk about one of the other ones. Who else was voted on? We got Genesis, Diamond Weapon, Minerva, and Genova. I'll go ahead and say what I think about Genova. Extremely possible. I think it's 100% possible that we are going to fight Genova at the Northern Crater. Whether it's going to be like the Genova Life, I don't know. Whether she's going to be the final boss, I don't know, but I guarantee she will be one of the bosses leading up to the final fight, because we encounter her in the OG, and it would make a lot of sense that we would encounter her in Rebirth at the end. Dante says, and Cloud's mind is what we're waiting for. Yeah. I assume you mean Cloud's mind, like it will most likely be at the beginning of the third installment of the remake trilogy. Let me know what you think. But yeah, I'm definitely, if that's what you're talking about, I'm definitely looking forward to the part where we're inside of Cloud's mind. Love that part of the game. I expect it to be one of the, towards the beginning or first 25% of the part 3 of the trilogy. So yeah, absolutely looking forward to that. We've got Minerva. Okay, so yeah, Genova guaranteed to be one of the final bosses. Whether she is the final boss, I don't know, but I could absolutely see her being there in some way, shape, or form. Minerva. I'll take a moment to talk about Minerva and Genesis. So Genesis got 12% of the vote, and I absolutely understand why. We have already seen in this short Rebirth trailer that Genesis is going to be involved somehow. We've seen that Zack survives. We see the white feather float down, which most likely represents Angeal, and of course the devs came out with the Crisis Core reunion super remaster because they wanted us to learn more about Zack. And undoubtedly, Genesis is going to come into play here. You have Angeal, you have Sephiroth. Genesis is bound to show up. Dante Room says, and what kind of reaction Tifa would have. Inside his mind, I think she's going to have a similar reaction. I think she's going to be forgiving of Cloud. I think she, most of all, is more in tune with what Cloud thinks. Luckily, Tifa sees Zack and Cloud interacting with each other. Yeah, could be. Could be. But, so, with these elements of Crisis Core being inserted into Rebirth, I definitely see that we could have some kind of Genesis fight. And with the Minerva as well. Minerva is the one who sees Genesis, who kind of is his judgment. She is the angel or something that he speaks of when that he's looking for in trying to reenact Loveless, which I don't care to get into Loveless, but that's Genesis's thing. But anyway, so the goddess of Minerva that he sees, her as, judges him and looks into his soul, and the devs even say, what did the devs say about her? So Minerva's facial, this is from the development staff. Minerva's facial expressions are meant to be a hint to the livestream's judgment, such as Genesis has not yet completed his duty as a soldier, and Genesis still has much left to learn. But she still keeps Genesis whole. We do see Genesis at the end of Dirge of Cerberus if you unlock that scene. But with this being with Destiny being defeated, Minerva could show up, or she could send Genesis. Either way, I could see both of them being final bosses in some way, shape, or form, but that all depends on our journey that we have with Zack. So, what are Zack's interactions? How does Angeal fit into this? And will Genesis show up earlier? I don't want them to just kind of shoehorn Genesis in at the very end. If he's going to be a final boss, he needs to show up earlier in the game and throughout the game. He needs to be the antagonist or the villain of at least Zack or Cloud, or Zack and Cloud, whichever ones you may think of. And she finds out that he has PTSD. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, all that stuff, I still expect it to come true. And and if you think about it, Tifa has PTSD as well from her experience with the incident at Nibelheim. She saw her village burn down, her family get slaughtered as well. So, but because of Cloud's Mako poisoning, it affects him differently. But anyway, so the same thing with Minerva as well, and she got 0 votes, so I think partially that's because she's one of the lesser known characters. I played Crisis Core back on the PSP. I didn't get to Minerva. I didn't bother trying. I think you have to beat most of the 300 missions, the side missions, in order to get to Minerva, and by the time you get to that, they're extremely repetitive. And so far in what I've played of Crisis Core Reunion, they've done a little bit better of a job of recreating them, but they're still repetitive. You can still only just run down hallways and turn at right angles and do this so many times before you're like, okay, 300, 299 more of these. I don't know. You really have to be dedicated. But let me know in a comment below if you beat all 300 of the missions in Crisis Core. I'm not going to be one of them. I don't know, unless you guys are like, no, you have to. It'll take me a while. I'm not going to do it on my first playthrough. So yeah, anyway, if Minerva ends up being the final boss, there needs to be some kind of mention of Minerva throughout, or some hints that Minerva is affecting things throughout the storyline. Now we're going to get into, let's see, did I talk about all of them? I think I did. I think I talked about Sephiroth, talked about Cloud, Genesis, Minerva, and Genova. The last one I'm going to talk about is Diamond Weapon, or one of the weapons. Weapons come up multiple times in the Final Fantasy VII compilation. While I haven't played Before Crisis, I believe the final boss of Before Crisis is also some kind of weapon created by the planet. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know the name of it, so if you know the name of the weapon or the final boss of Before Crisis, let me know. Dante says, we can't forget about after you left the village, aka Cloud's story in Chapter 3. He gets sensitive about it when Tifa asks him about his story. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my theories, is that when, if you get that extra scene with Tifa in Tifa's room where you get to choose her outfit, when she asks Cloud what he did, and Cloud says it was just working for Shinra, just doing their stuff, and he kind of like chokes up and stops talking. He chokes up and stops talking because he doesn't remember what he did for Shinra for the past 5 years. It's a blank space, and this is the first time that anyone has asked him about those years. And so Cloud does react when he hears Zack's name. Yeah, he does that too. So one of the weapons. So at the same time that Sephiroth is given the black materia, Meteor is summoned, and the planet goes into ultimate crisis mode. The planet releases basically every single weapon it has at its disposal, with the exception of Minerva. Minerva is a manifestation of the life stream. She's not exactly a weapon. She's described as a summon, sort of, that isn't bound to materia, kinda. So it's weird that Minerva works that way. But the weapons are simply giant beasts that are sent out to essentially protect the planet. And in the OG, I believe the only mandatory fight is with Diamond Weapon. All the other fights are optional. But Diamond Weapon, from playing the OG, you don't even defeat Diamond Weapon. You basically just stand in its way and stall it until it just gets bored with you, and it's like, you know what, I'm done with you guys, I'm walking over to Midgar. And then it's the cannon that, it's the Sister Ray that they've implanted on Midgar from Junon that actually defeats Diamond Weapon. But so when Sephiroth is awoken, given the black materia, he summons Meteor. The planet releases all of its weapons, which are encased right there with Sephiroth. In fact, you can see the giant eyeball of one of the weapons, most likely Diamond Weapon, I think, frozen in ice or crystal at the northern crater as well. So it would, they're right there. They've just woken up, and it's their job to defend the planet. With Destiny being destroyed, you could argue that these weapons will just start attacking everybody who's there. And, they try to anyway, or at least the events that ensue risk their lives, and it's only through escaping on the high wind that they all are able to get out of there, with the exception of Cloud. So Cloud does react when he hears that. Oh yeah, I already read that. Yeah. So why? I think it would, first off, I think it would be badass if the weapons were one of our final battles, if not the final battle. I think it would be a good segue that leads into the third act and the third game that comes out for this trilogy. Even though I don't think the weapons are mentioned very much, I'm not sure if Bugenhagen mentions the weapons in Cosmo Canyon before they actually get there. I can't remember if it's before or after. Let me know in a comment, or after this video is done, let me know in a comment below. But to have to fight the weapon right then and there, first off, you're guaranteed a loss. We know that traditionally in trilogies, the second part of a trilogy is a tragedy. We see it in Star Wars. We see it somewhat in the Avengers movies, where if you consider the Infinity War to be sort of the third part of the trilogy, or even though there's 4 of them, it's the tragedy one. So Tifa finds out what Cloud said, especially that son of a bitch Hojo. Yeah. But anyway, it would be incredible to have to, that would be something incredible on, up there with the Harbinger of Fate, something giant, something monumental. And I do feel like that Square Enix is going to try and make it feel much more monumental. Whether we have Zack at this point or not, whether Zack has sacrificed himself beforehand, or whatever they're planning on doing with Zack, that can go in a million different directions. But so a weapon is guaranteed to be there, and it's very possible that we could fight Diamond Weapon or one of the other weapons. This would also set up how powerful the weapons are in Part 3. It would be a guaranteed loss. It would really just be stalling, the weapon that happens to be causing the most chaos right then and there, until the High Wind can get into position in order to save everybody. And then the sacrificial part would be, perhaps, once again, if Cloud does go berserk and attack someone, let's say it's Tifa defeats him, knocks him out of it, he realizes what he's done, he sees the chaos ensuing, and he just goes total limit break on Diamond Weapon or Ultimate Weapon or whichever weapon they fight, essentially sacrificing himself in order to save everybody else. So I think it could go that way. And then this other Cloud that we have, it could be the other Cloud that does the sacrifice. Or it could be our Cloud, the Cloud that we are venturing with. And once again, the possibilities for what the plans are for Zack, how Zack is going to alter events, and what the plans are for this second Cloud are, count the branches on a tree. Bonsoir, have you read the 4chan prediction for Rebirth? No, I haven't. Troubadour Poet, I have not read the prediction on 4chan for Rebirth. I can't remember if it was you or someone else. I feel like someone mentioned the 4chan prediction in one of my other videos, and I don't remember what they said about it. It might have been you, though. I'm not sure. But do remind me, what was the prediction that they made? While I'm waiting for that, let me know what you guys think. The last thing I'll say is that, once again, just like in Remake, how they said that no one could have seen this end boss, this harbinger of fate. This was totally out of left field, completely changed everything up. There's also the possibility that we're going to have some kind of boss fight that we can't even predict. Like, no one has gotten it right. Not Maximilian Dude or Blitz or Night Sky Prince. None of us who are making all these theory videos have gotten it right. So there's always the possibility for the big question mark. They say Zack will save Aerith. It's a possibility, although based on what the devs have said about how, even though the events that happen in the OG are still going to happen in Rebirth, it's just basically the road that we take to get to all these different important events could change. Troubadour says Cloud will be mortally wounded by Genesis and die in Tifa's arms, and the other Cloud will be kidnapped by Sephiroth. Shulk will join the party. Jessie will be an actress at Gold Saucer. I could say, yeah, I've heard the Jessie at the Gold Saucer one. Shulk will join the party. That's a pretty big theory out there, since originally I think they said only the 9 original characters will be playable. So Shulk joining the party would be a huge deviation. Cloud will be mortally wounded by Genesis. That would be cool. Dies in Tifa's arms. Yeah, this kind of goes back to the Farscape. I don't know if you were watching then, but the Farscape juxtaposition that I made there, where the lead female sees one of the lead males die, one of the copies of the lead male, and so it's like she's essentially seen him die. And here's the thing, though, with Sephiroth stealing away the extra Cloud, I still think, like, all these things are cool. Like, all these things are really cool ideas. But one of the most important things from the original game is seeing inside Cloud's mind and seeing the true events of what happened. It's the huge reveal of Final Fantasy VII, and while they've already hinted at that, and they could hint at it more in Rebirth, I still feel like that's such a pivotal point in the original game that they wouldn't get rid of it. So, one way or another, I guess what I'm saying is I still think one of the Clouds still has to end up in the live stream, while the other one can die. I think being mortally wounded by Genesis and dying in Tifa's arms would be incredible. But another prediction they made was that Aerith will temporarily become a vessel for Minerva. Okay. That would be pretty intense as well. One of the things I do wonder, and this is off the topic of who's the final boss going to be, but I do wonder if they're going to... Would Tifa ever get pregnant? I think that would be one of those things where it's going to be like... This would be post remake trilogy. It's probably that the Zack universe one dies, and then remake Cloud gets teased by Sephiroth for being a copy and all. Yeah, that's a possibility too. I think it would be somewhat less tragic if the Zack universe one died, or the Terrier. I get the dogs confused now. The Terrier version of Cloud, not the Beagle version. Yeah, the question, yeah, that's the huge question mark also, is what's going to happen between these two Clouds. Definitely appreciate y'all's comments, and I think they've got plans in store for us that we don't even know if the devs do. Troubadour says, I think Tifa getting pregnant could be a future arc or epilogue. Yeah. The events that happen in the remake trilogy, I think, are a way that is meant to kind of conclude Final Fantasy VII. I mean, as long as they can make money off of it, don't get me wrong. They're always going to make content involving Final Fantasy VII, but I think what they're doing with this remake trilogy is they are wrapping it up in a nice tight bundle where they can undo Advent Children and they can undo Dirge of Cerberus, like these new events happening, undo that. Cloud, in Advent Children, Cloud is still very damaged from the events of the OG game, from losing Aerith, from, everything. And so that's a mental blocker for him being able to love Tifa. So yeah, if Cloud is healed, quote unquote, fully by the end of the remake trilogy, that would possibly open him up to let love in, and that be with Tifa. But yeah, severely off topic. But anyway, I definitely appreciate the comments, because it is talking about not necessarily the final boss, but where are these characters going to end up at the end of Rebirth. So yeah, I get it. Yeah, I haven't read all those theories out there, so thanks for posting those, guys. Genesis being the final boss, and here's another question for you guys, and I'm going to end the stream here soon, so feel free to chat it or put it in a comment after this video is posted. But if we do fight Genesis, do we defeat Genesis, or do you think that Genesis still survives through some Minerva means? Like you said, Genesis fatally wounds Cloud. So that would be interesting. And it'll be Cloud. You think it'll be Cloud? If you joined me earlier, I personally, and I know a lot of people want it to be Cloud, I don't want it to be Cloud. Another question would be if Tifa's teacher, Zangan, may end up playing a role. I would love to see Zangan more. Maybe even Genesis and Cloud both die. That would be cool. I'd be cool with that, because once again, a lot of people don't like Genesis, so him sort of being just the main villain of Rebirth, I could see that. Because then we wouldn't have to worry about him being in the final part of the trilogy for those who kind of don't like him. And that would be, there's also the theory that Zack is still going to die at the end of Rebirth as well. Aerith is still going to die. Zack could save Aerith. I know someone commented on Aerith becoming a vessel for Minerva. I do question, I do believe that Aerith is going to die in some way, but I don't know that she will die in the same way as in the original. Because that's going to be one of those things, like, for those of y'all who know me, y'all know I'm an Aerith fan, Clarith fan. She's my favorite of the two lead females, even though love Tifa to death. She's an incredible character. But I think she'll die, but I think she'll die in a different way. I don't want Cloud to kill her, because I feel like that's sort of a point of no return for Cloud, and I talked about that in a different video. So I don't think they will kill them off after what they've done with Fate, and then she can't die the same way. It won't impact us the same. I agree with that, Petrichor. I agree with that totally. Aerith dying the exact same way, too many people would be expecting that, even though all the people who are playing, I won't say all, but a lot of the people who are playing the remake and then going on to play the OG, it hasn't been spoiled for them. So when they go to play the OG, they're like, oh my god, I can't believe the chat didn't spoil this for me. Like they're extremely emotional, and one of them is it's Lazboy. If you've ever watched his Reader's Digest playthrough of the OG, it never got spoiled for him. He never knew that Aerith died, and so when he found out, he was like you could see the shock on his face. You could also it was the shock from Aerith dying, but also the shock from the fact that no one in chat spoiled it for him. And so I think that was pretty good of his audience, and I'm really glad that I see a lot of spoilers out there, especially looking at other people's theory videos. But I'm glad that a lot of new players are experiencing this for the first time, not knowing all the twists and turns of the original game. But even regardless of that, I do think that they have to change that up somehow. They've got to subvert our expectations. And so if we expect that she gets skewered by Sephiroth in the Forgotten City, then the best thing they could do is have something intervene. Could be Zack, could be alternate Cloud. I don't know, but that would be the most shocking thing to happen, because then the question becomes, when is she gonna die? Troubadour, I think Genesis will not die, at least not in Rebirth. I think Cloud from Remake will be the one who dies, and the other Cloud will end up coming into his own under Zack. And then Troubadour, I don't think Zack nor Aerith will die. Okay, interesting. If they don't die by the end of Rebirth, I think they're both going to die somehow. I think this was like one of the first videos I made not years ago, but a little over a year ago, where it was like everyone who died in the original is going to end up dead again, just in a different way. That makes the most sense. I used to be a Clarith fan myself. Cool, yeah. I get a lot of people. I will say one thing. The remake really made me like Tifa's character more. I'm still an Aerith fan, but I think they did a fantastic job on Tifa in the remake. And in the OG, in just the Midgar portion, I do think Aerith gets a little bit more characterization and plot development than Tifa does. It's only later on that Tifa gets a lot more character development than Aerith. They did an amazing job on both. Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. Petrichor has the opposite effect. The remake made you like Aerith more and less of Tifa, oddly enough. Might change, of course, yeah. I love all those characters, and the remake did a fantastic job. Whether you liked the end of remake or not, you definitely got to agree that the characters were done phenomenally well in remake. One thin PG. Oops. But yeah. Barrett, all the characters in remake were amazing, and that's one reason I can't wait to see what they do with them in Rebirth. I think despite Ever Crisis coming, they need to remake Before Crisis perhaps in DLCs and call it Before Crisis Chronicles of the Turks. I think it would be cool to see a remake of Before Crisis, although I know they're remaking Before Crisis as a part of Ever Crisis, but I don't know that they will remake Before Crisis until they see how well it does in Ever Crisis. If there's enough, and once again, as long as Final Fantasy VII content sells, they could eventually remake Before Crisis. I don't know that they would give it the remake touch, like make it this realistic, but I could see them doing it in some way. They can, if they can make the audience like or even sympathize with Lucretia, that'll be interesting. I would love to see backstory with her and Vincent as well. That would be cool. Question for Elrod: can you name all the player Turks from Before Crisis? Absolutely not. Like, I know some of them have Ever Crisis and Before Crisis. Okay. What is the difference between Ever Crisis and Before Crisis? So Ever Crisis, I don't really know if there's going to be a difference in it, but Ever Crisis is going to encompass every single game that they've made in a mobile phone game version, if that's what you're saying. So, but yeah, so Ever Crisis is going to have Before Crisis, Crisis Core, the OG, Advent Children, and Dirge of Cerberus. I'm an Aerith fan, but I just think she is meant to be with Zack. Fair enough. That's fine. So I'm going to... But yeah, I'll leave you guys with the question of, you know, what do you think the final boss is going to be? Definitely appreciate everybody who dropped a comment and voted on the poll. Troubadour says Ever Crisis is a mobile game coming this summer. Yeah, it should come out this summer in July. It was either at the end of June or the beginning of July, I think. So, yeah, the beta comes out this summer. Not necessarily the game itself. So, we'll see how much access we get to the beta. And I theorized in another video that I'm really hoping the reason they delayed it for 6 months, they delayed this game coming out, actually 6 or 7 months. I really hope they delayed it because they're making a PC version. A lot of people are saying that it's just not going to happen, but I'm remaining cautiously optimistic that they'll make a PC version. Yeah. I hope they've seen my videos. I hope they've seen... Everybody who talks about Final Fantasy VII is like, dude, put Ever Crisis on PC. Or emulatable, yeah. So, guys, thanks for stopping by. Once again, I'm going to leave y'all with the question of what do you guys think the final boss of Rebirth is going to be? You're right, Petrichor, yeah. And I'm going to leave it at that. This has been a fantastic stream. I didn't expect it to go this long or have this much participation, but all of your participation was extremely welcome, and I really appreciate all of you guys, and I recognize a lot of you guys from leaving comments on my other videos. So thank you guys very much for that. And hope you guys have a good night. And hope you guys enjoy playing some more games. In a comment below also, let me know what you guys are playing right now. I just finished playing God of War Ragnarok a little while ago, and I need to get back into finishing Crisis Core Reunion. I stopped playing Crisis Core Reunion because of God of War Ragnarok. So, leave you guys with that. This has been fun. Be sure to check out more board game and video game videos on the FailroadExpress, and more Final Fantasy VII videos to come. Thank you.